Hi. It's very late. It's like 9 PM. I left Cardiff Uni before 3 PM this afternoon, and this is me just getting to my hotel in Aberystwyth. They're both in Wales. It should not have taken me more than 6 hours to get here, but here we are. I'm in Aberystwyth. It took time. We were a wee bit delayed, not 25 minutes delayed. They made up some time, and I've walked from the train station to the Premier Inn. I'm finally in, and I'm going to bed. I'll tell you more about why I'm here in the morning. Hey, after the fact Thomas here, it turns out it's actually rather hard to vlog a 3-day CDT training event while doing said CDT training. It's quite intense. So this is now after the fact. I'm gonna let Aberystwyth Thomas explain what he's managed to explain and then fill in the gaps for you. So suffice it to say, travelling to Aberystwyth took far too long, so let's now rejoin me on the first day of the training event. Morning folks, sorry I sort of cut the vlog a bit very short last night. I was just so exhausted from travelling. Basically, Transport for Wales, connections were a bit small, delays caused problems. Anyway, I'm now in Aberystwyth, and the reason I'm in Aberystwyth is because I'm here for a CDT training event. I realise that says basically nothing. A CDT is a Centre for Doctoral Training. It's a way of doing a PhD that is different from just being in a university with a supervisor doing the PhD. You do that stuff, but you also get additional training. And typically CDTs have a theme. Mine is called AMLAC, which stands for AI, Machine Learning and Advanced Computing. That's the theme of the CDT. It's not necessarily going to feed right into my project in every way, like I don't know if machine learning is going to feed into how I do my project, but that's what my CDT is all about. Now, in the first year of my CDT, I have like 5 different training events and a load of top modules. The first of these training events was in Cardiff back in September, right before the start of the PhD. This is the second one. We're in Aberystwyth, which is in West Wales, right on the west coast. It's a nightmare to get to apparently, by public transport, and apparently also by road if you live in Bangor, having spoken to some of the other students today. We're here for some additional training. I think it's mostly focused on sort of computing things, so stuff on like Unix shell, NumPy, using Git, that sort of thing. I'll explain more as we go through the week. I'm here for 3 days, so I'm going to take clips as and when. I don't think I'm going to be able to give many updates during the day, but I'll take clips as and when I can, and I'll explain what's going on as we go through the week. So these CDT training events, there are 5 of them, one in each of the cities that hosts a university that's part of my Centre for Doctoral Training. So that's Cardiff, Swansea, Aberystwyth, Bangor and Bristol. Now the point of these training events is to introduce us to a load of new skills and techniques that should be useful going forward in our PhDs. More on that later. So the cohort is quite mixed ability in terms of computations and coding, so they let us choose which sessions we wanted to take part in for this CDT event. So because my research is computational astrophysics, I'm actually on the higher end of the computational side for this very interdisciplinary CDT. So I did the more advanced sessions on making NumPy more performant, on more advanced version control and that sort of thing. Our first session of the day was on NumPy. This is a package used in Python, a programming language that mostly deals with arrays, so basically big matrices full of information. Now there are ways to deal with arrays in Python. You can use for loops where you basically say, for this many times do this thing, and that's rather slow. There are faster ways to do it, and this whole session was about doing this faster. This sounds really good in principle. I use NumPy every day in my research, and it should have been really helpful for me. Unfortunately, the people that are giving the training to us are primarily computer science people, and they spent a bit too long labouring this is the importance of timing your code, and less on this is how actually you speed it up and how you would use this practically. So it wasn't quite as useful as it could have been, but it gives me a jumping off point to go to things later, so I'll take it, I guess. Our second session was on responsible research and innovation. So the point of this is to really think about how we research responsibly and ethically. What could be the negative impact of our research? Now, this is more important or less important for different people in the CDT. You've got people dealing with bioinformatics, dealing with medical stuff, and they really need to think about the ethics of what they're doing. You've got people dealing with crime statistics, and again, similar sort of thing. I, however, do galaxy simulations. So the question of how could this be used to directly harm somebody is, it's really hard to do that.
On the other hand, I do numerical simulations, and these are incredibly computationally intensive, meaning they use a lot of energy, which means that if we're getting our energy from fossil fuels, there is a climate impact, which is, yeah, I need to write more efficient code, essentially. But the point is that I shouldn't be running simulations I don't need to, because there are knock-on effects, even if they're not as obvious as they are in a field like medicine. But of course, the AI in AIMLAC stands for artificial intelligence, and there are inherent risks to using AI improperly. So this is something we all need to think about as part of this CDT. If we're using AI to make decisions, then there is the danger of bias. If we're using generative AI, it could be wrong and could spread misinformation or disinformation. In fact, you just need to look anywhere on Science YouTube at the minute, and you'll probably find a recommended video from a channel with like a white on black logo, and it's very clearly AI generated nonsense. So there are dangers to using AI that we need to be aware of, and it's the whole point of having these sessions on responsible research is to make us think about it. The third session on day one was on the coding challenge. Now this is something that is very specific to our CDT. Basically, we've been split up into groups and been told, right, you're going to make a machine learning model that will run a bidding program for a hypothetical renewable energy station somewhere in Wales that wants to maximize their profits. Basically, we have to use a machine learning model to predict markets, predict production, predict the consumption of our hypothetical office, and use all of that to bid the correct amounts of energy to maximize profit over time. It's a really interesting project, it's a really interesting challenge, and as much as it's imaginary money, it's still really interesting to have to go about the process of, right, how would we build this thing? Now, I don't know much about machine learning at the minute. To be fair, most people in the CDT don't know that much about machine learning yet, but we are taking a machine learning module at Bristol because each of the unis hosts a module, and that one should give us a bit more information on how to do this thing. But that's enough about day one, so let's talk about day two. And the bulk of day two was spent on version control, and specifically version control using Git. Now this is a method where basically you save versions of your code at different times, so that when you change something and you break it, you can jump back to what it was at previously to figure out what you did wrong, or just, get rid of all the code you just wrote. Essentially, it's way better than just pressing Ctrl-Z a load of times to undo stuff. So that's the point of version control, and we spent a lot of time on it, and I'm gonna pass back to Aberystwyth-based Thomas to explain why that didn't go quite as they'd intended.
Right, yeah, this is how we're doing this. I can't be arsed doing anything else. It's the end of day two. Today was mixed bag, I think. So today we were focused on Git, which is version control. We're specifically looking at Git, not GitHub. So this is like the actual version control system rather than the online storage system that a lot of us use. Git is used by Bitbucket as well, which is another one of these online storage systems. But anyway, this was a fairly in-depth look at exactly how Git works. It was a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Boring, dull, mind-numbing, those all work. Yeah, I'm sure it works great if your workflow is like different branches of your program, you're working on different features at different times, and you want to be able to separate them out and merge them in at different times when you're like finished working on that piece. If that's how you work, then I'm sure it's wonderful. That's not how I work, really. It maybe should be how I work, but it isn't how I work. The rest of the day was looking at high performance computing, or HPC. So this is what I will be doing. Like being able to run your programs on clusters that have a lot of compute cores, a lot of memory, and being able to run all of them, and how you set that up, how you put it into the queue, and how you get all that stuff working. Getting it all set up on supercomputing whales, which is how we're going to be doing a lot of this stuff. It's how I'll be doing a lot of my test simulations. I'll probably do my big production simulations on Dirac, which is the UK's supercomputer. So that was really interesting. We're now set up on that and I can access things, which is great. And a bit of a reminder on how you do all this stuff is always helpful, because I haven't done it in a while, and it's one of these things, it's one of these muscle memory things. If you do it all the time, then great. If you don't do it all the time, you forget how it works. So it's been good to remind myself how that works. I'd done this sort of sending stuff to the queue to run things. I'd done that at St Andrews when I was doing my master's project and my summer's project. But yeah, good reminder, and far more interesting than how you split up your commits when you've done different things in the same file and you want them committed separately. I'm very tired. My brain feels like it's about to explode. I'm going to have a bit of a chill before dinner, and then, yeah, I don't know, we'll see. I'll see you all in the morning. Good morning. outside. This is Aberystwyth seafront, and yeah, I felt I had to come outside and see the place a bit before going home. It's just gone 8 o'clock this morning, and I've not had breakfast yet, but I thought I'd come out and have a wee wander, take a few pictures of the seafront before going to breakfast, because the last day of the CDT training event starts at 9:30. So yeah, I thought I'd at least see a little bit of the place before we have to go racing back down to Cardiff.
Now, days 1 and 2 were really intense, but day 3 was so much more chill. We started off the day with a talk on evolutionary computing, another branch of machine learning that's a bit different from the sort of deep learning stuff that we'll be using for the coding challenge and the large language models that power things like ChatGPT. This was a completely different branch that I don't really know much about, but it sounded interesting. And then we finished off the day with the student board, which is essentially the student feedback mechanism within the CDT, where basically we aired all of the issues that you've just heard about from me back in Aberystwyth. After this, it was back to Cardiff, another couple of trains and a bus back to the house, and then I collapsed in a heap. I was absolutely knackered. I'd been ill for most of that week, and I really just wanted my bed. Now, all in all, while the event wasn't perfect, it was really useful and actually quite fun. If you're doing a PhD without doing a CDT, you're probably going to be talking to people within your research group, maybe within your department, but probably not much beyond that. Through my CDT, I have ready access to an entire network of people doing all sorts of subjects. It's not all astronomers. There are particle physicists, there are computer scientists, mathematicians, biologists, and people doing things that I've forgotten about just now. And this is great because it means that you've got access to people with different perspectives who may be able to help you. Now, that's wonderful. I'm talking to people in departments and universities I otherwise wouldn't be. And this is the real value of the CDT. It's not the training event, it's not the easy access to the courses, it is the people. They are really what make it, and it was great fun. Now, I know this has been a rather unconventional vlog. I had hoped to be able to do more vlogging in Aberystwyth. It's a really nice place, and I actually wish I'd got to see more of it, I guess. There are a few more of these events. There's one in Bristol, one in Bangor, and one in Swansea, and I'm probably not going to try and vlog them because, as we've seen here, that's a bit tricky. If you've anything you want to know, however, about the CDT, about doing the PhD, or about anything else that I've mentioned in this video or any other ones, let me know in the comment section below, or come and join us on Discord and let me know there. Regular vlogging format will resume in the next episode. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.